Hello everyone. So last lecture we have done the respiratory tract. We started the respiratory tract, okay, in which we have seen the nasal passage, okay, nostrils, nasal passage, pharynx, and the larynx, and the structure, the functions were studied in the last lecture. Now we'll be seeing the second part of the respiratory tract, that is the trachea. Okay. Now what is trachea? So trachea is basically a 12 centimeter long and around 2.5 centimeter width. So it's basically a tube. It's a long muscular tube which is around 12 centimeter in length and 2.5 centimeter in the diameter. Okay. Now this is the one which is present in complete length of neck. It will be present in the complete length of the neck, that is up to the middle part of thoracic cavity. So it starts from the beginning of the neck to the middle part of the thoracic cavity, or we can say at the level of the fifth thoracic vertebra. It will be at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra, and which will be divided into the left and right primary bronchi. Okay, so it will be then dividing into left and right primary bronchi. So you can see over here, this trachea will be dividing the left and right primary bronchi. Okay, now in complete length of trachea, we can say in complete length of trachea 16 to 20 C-shaped cartilaginous rings are present. Okay, so in the whole length of the trachea, C-shaped cartilaginous rings are present, which means these are the rings which are not forming a complete circle, so they will be incomplete rings. These are forming the incomplete ring are present. Okay, and these rings are basically made up of hyaline cartilage. Okay, so there will be incomplete C-shaped cartilaginous rings are present, which are made up of hyaline cartilage. Okay, and these are incomplete at the dorsal side. So we know that we have got two sides, that is the ventral and the dorsal. So towards these ventral sides, these C-shaped rings are present, will be intact, while at the dorsal side these are absent. At the dorsal side. Okay. Now, in the absence of cartilage on the dorsal surface, there are specific muscles which are present called as trachealis muscle. The muscles are called as trachealis muscles, which are present at the dorsal surfaces. So the part where these rings are absent, so instead of rings, there are some other muscles present which are called as trachealis muscles, which are responsible for the dilation of trachea during the forceful breathing. So when the breathing is caused by force, okay, so during that particular condition, what happens, the trachea has to be dilated in a higher amount, so that will be dilated more. Okay, so it has to be this dilation is basically taken care by this trachealis muscle. So this will be helping in the forceful breathing. So when we see the histology of the trachea, it means when we see this cross section of the trachea, we find it into four different layers. We find mainly the four layers, that is the mucosa, submucosa, cartilaginous, and the tunica adventitia. So you can see these layers. The outermost one, which is white fibrous, which is made up of white fibrous connective tissues, okay, made up of white fibrous connective tissues, basically called as adventitia, called as tunica. Tunica means layer, and adventitia is basically the tissue layer. Okay, so the outermost layer of this trachea is called as tunica adventitia. Within this, under to this tunica adventitia, there is another layer called as cartilaginous layer. So we are moving from outside to inside. Okay, so within this adventitia, within this tunica adventitia, there is a second layer called as hyaline cartilaginous layer, which is made up of hyaline cartilage, and it will be forming the C-shaped incomplete ring. Okay, it will be incomplete at part of the dorsal part. So at the dorsal part it will be incomplete, while at the ventral part it will be present. Okay, and in dorsal as well, the dorsal part, instead of this cartilage, there will be some muscular structures called as trachealis muscles. Okay, the first layer is adventitia, tunica adventitia, second is the hyaline cartilage, and the third one is the submucosa. This is the submucosa. So submucosa is basically made up of areolar connective tissue. It's made up of areolar connective tissue, and this is the site where different type of glands are present, which are like the mucus glands, okay, responsible for secreting this mucus, okay, into the cavity, and the sebous glands, okay, and these will be different glands present in the submucosal layer. Okay, now the innermost layer, the one which is basically present next to the cavity, it's the mucosa. This innermost layer is the mucosa, and this mucosa is further divided into 3 sublayers. This mucosa is further divided into 3 layers. Okay, that is the epithelium, lamina propria, and the muscularis mucosa. So the innermost layer within this cavity is called as epithelium, which is made up of, it's a ciliated epithelium. Okay, so this is something we have to note down. So the tracheal epithelium is basically ciliated epithelium. So these are made up of pseudo-stratified cilium, ciliated glandular epithelium. Note it down. So these are this epithelial layer is basic in the trachea is made up of pseudo-stratified. We have seen what are the pseudo-stratified, right? You know that these are not actually forming the layers of the cells, but it will be seeming like that. It will be observed like that they are forming the layers. Okay, the single layer will be looked as a multiple layers, so called as pseudo-stratified. So these are the epithelial cells are basically made up of ciliated cells. These are ciliated cells and called as PSCGE. It means pseudo-stratified columnar glandular epithelium. So this will be possessing this cilia. Along with this cilia, there will be some cells in this epithelial layer. Which are responsible for secretion of mucus. And these cells are called as goblet cells. Okay, so we have got mainly 3 layers in this mucosa. The first layer is the epithelium made up of PSCGE, that is pseudo-stratified ciliated glandular epithelium, and just below this we will be having another layer, that is lamina propria. It is the one which is basically made up of fibrous connective tissue. And this will be consisting of the cells like mast cells and all that. Okay, and the last one is the muscularis mucosa. This muscularis mucosa is basically consisting of the longitudinal and circular muscles which are responsible for the movement of this trachea. So the mucosa made up of 3 layers, that is epithelium having the pseudo-stratified glandular and ciliated epithelium. Second one is the lamina propria, which is made up of fibrous connective tissue. Third sublayer is the muscularis mucosa, which is responsible for having the circular and the longitudinal muscles. Okay, and hence causing the movement. And the next layer is submucosa, consisting the areolar connective tissue. Cartilaginous layer, basically responsible for formation of C-shaped cartilage rings. Okay, and dorsally present particularly. The last and outermost layer is the tunica adventitia, made up of white fibrous connective tissue. Okay, so that was about the histology of the trachea. Now the trachea can be basically when the trachea enters into the thoracic cavity. So when this trachea enters into thoracic cavity, it divides into 2 branches. And these are called as 2 branches are basically the bronchial tree and the respiratory tree. So when the trachea enters into the thoracic cavity, it divides into 2 branches, which are called as the bronchial tree and the respiratory tree. The branches are the primary bronchus up to the terminal bronchioles are basically bronchial tree. Okay, so here we can see the branches which are basically, these are the bronchial tree and these are the respiratory tree. So the branches of the primary bronchus up to terminal bronchioles, it makes the bronchial tree. The water bronchial tree is that branch of the trachea which basically the branches of primary branches up to the terminal bronchioles. So this will be forming these bronchioles. Okay, so these are the branches, trachea, bronchi, then it's a bronchiole, and then this is the terminal bronchiole. Okay, so this whole branches which are basically from trachea to the terminal bronchioles is called as bronchial tree. And okay, so this terminal bronchioles will be further dividing into different respiratory bronchioles, and they will be forming this alveoli. Okay, so this respiratory bronchiole, then alveolar ducts, and then the alveolar sac, and this branches is called as respiratory tree. These branches are called as respiratory tree, the bronchial tree and the respiratory tree. Okay, so let us see. So the bronchial tree, the 2 branches in thoracic cavity, we know that 2 branches within the branches into terminals into bronchioles are called as bronchial tree. Now this bronchial tree will be having this cartilaginous rings will be present in here. The cartilaginous ring will be present. Okay, and has dead space volume. What does it mean? Dead space volume is the volume of the air present in the tracheal cavity. in the tracheal or the bronchial cavity which is not in use. Okay, so this is the dead space volume. So this volume will be not used at all, and this will be always present in the trachea, but it will not be used. That is the bronchial, that is the dead space volume. So the bronchial tree has got main characteristic is that, first of all, it has got the cartilaginous rings are present. It has got this cartilaginous rings, and second, it has got this dead space volume. Okay, now the respiratory tree consists of it will be starting from the terminal bronchioles. It will be starting from the terminal bronchioles and divide into respiratory bronchioles, and then further it will be basically terminating with the alveoli sacs. Okay, terminating into the alveoli sacs. Okay, now unlike the bronchial tree, the cartilaginous rings are absent over here. So the main characteristic are the cartilaginous rings are absent, and here this is the place where the gaseous exchange will take place. This is the exact place where this gaseous exchange will be taking place. Okay, so let us see again here. This is the bronchial tree and this is the respiratory tree. Bronchial tree is basically formed from the trachea will be divided into primary bronchus, which will be again moving right and left, and the right one is wide and short while the left one is narrow and long. Okay, the bronchial tree, the primary bronchus is further divided into secondary bronchus, then the tertiary bronchus, then the intrapulmonary bronchiole, and the last one is the terminal bronchiole. This part, right from trachea to terminal bronchiole, is called as bronchial tree, and this part of this trachea will not be having the cartilaginous rings. This will not be having the cartilaginous rings. Okay, and second, this part will also have a dead space volume. It means the air which is present in this part of the trachea will be of no use. It will not be utilized. Okay, and the second part is the respiratory tree. Respiratory starts from the respiratory bronchiole. So just after the terminal bronchiole will be the respiratory bronchioles will be beginning. Okay, these respiratory bronchioles will be again dividing into alveolar duct, then atria, alveolar sac, and the alveoli. And this whole body is called as respiratory tree. And this will not be containing the cartilaginous rings. The cartilaginous rings are absent over here, and this is the main site or region. Which is responsible for the gaseous exchange. And hence it is called as respiratory tree. So these are the main two parts of the trachea. Okay, that is about the trachea. So we have done the respiratory tract is complete. So in the respiratory tract we have studied the nasal passage, larynx, pharynx, and the trachea. Now we will be starting the second part of the respiration. And it's so important. Okay, that is the lungs. Okay, so let us start the lungs. Okay, so in case of humans, humans has got two light. It's basically not in much weight. So it's in humans a pair of lung is present. Okay, the lung has got two basically structures, two lobes. Okay, so in humans, two lungs, and spongy and pink in color. These are mainly found in spongy and pink in color. And around the lungs there will be a pleural cavity will present. So here you can see the structure. Let us discuss the structure of lungs first of all. So the human, it will be having the pleural cavity. So what is pleural cavity? So pleural cavity is, here you can see, this is a pleural cavity. Okay, this is present between so let us see. We have got two different membranes, that is the parietal pleura and the visceral pleura. So the lungs are basically surrounded by two pleural membrane, that is the parietal pleura and here you can see this is parietal pleura and this is the visceral pleura. So these lungs are enclosed in a membranous structure. These are basically two membranes. There are two membranes present in the surface of these lungs. Okay, these are the parietal pleura, which is the outer membrane, and the visceral pleura, this is the inner membrane. The parietal pleura, but this is the outer membrane, and the visceral pleura is the inner membrane. And within this membrane, it forms a cavity. Which is called as pleural cavity. So within this membrane, the space present between this parietal pleura and the visceral pleura is the cavity, and with this cavity is called as pleural cavity. This cavity is called as pleural cavity, which is filled with a fluid, which is called as pleural fluid, Okay, so the lung is basically covered with the two layer membranes which are called as pleura. So parietal pleura and the visceral pleura, which will be enclosing a cavity. Between this membrane there will be a cavity called as pleural cavity, and this will be filled with a fluid which is called the pleural fluid, and all over we can say around 2 ml of the pleural fluid will be present in this cavity. Both the pleura are composed of simple squamous epithelium. This visceral pleura and the parietal pleura, both these pleura are composed of the both the pleura are composed of the simple squamous epithelium. Okay, so this is what the pleural membranes and the pleural cavity. These are the pleural membrane and the pleural cavity. Now, whenever this infection is present, so by infection, when the amount of fluid increases, sometimes what may happen due to some infection, the amount of this fluid, the amount of this pleural fluid will increase, and this condition is called as pleurisy. So what is pleurisy? Pleurisy is that condition when the amount of pleural fluid will be increasing, the amount of pleural fluid will be getting increased due to some infection. This pleurisy will be responsible for causing chest pain, and hence the breathing will become painful. Okay, so when the infection, due to some infection, what may happen? Due to some infection, the amount of this pleural fluid, this pleural fluid will increase. Okay, and such condition is called as pleurisy. And this pleurisy will be responsible for causing the chest pain. And due to this, the breathing will also become painful. Okay, this pleurisy is a condition where the chest pain occurs and the breathing becomes difficult. Okay, and why does it happen? It happens because of the infection of the pleural fluid, and the amount of the fluid increases in this condition. Okay, and then painful or difficult breathing is called as dyspnea. What is it called? Dyspnea. What we call it? Dyspnea. Okay, so the dyspnea is basically the painful and the difficult breathing condition is called as dyspnea. Now the space between two lungs is called as mediastinum. This space, now here we can see there are two lungs. Here we have two good lungs, and it is basically separated by the space between them. These two lungs are separated by the space present between them, and this space between these two lungs are called as mediastinum. The space between these two lungs is called as mediastinum. Okay, so the two lungs are basically separated by the space between them, and this space between these two lungs are called as mediastinum, in which the heart, esophagus, aorta, and the different structures like the heart, esophagus, and aorta will be present. Even the thymus will also be present in this mediastinum space only. Okay. Now when we compare these two lungs, the right side and the left side, so right side lung is comparatively bigger compared to the left one. So this right lung is basically comparatively bigger than the left one. Why? Because this left lung will be having a here we can see this lung is comparatively bigger than this leg one, because the left lung will be having a specifically curved structure, will be having a curved area which is a notch like structure called as cardiac notch. So the right lung is basically little bit bigger because the left lung will be having a permanent concavity. This is the concave structure. Okay, so this left lung will be having a concavity which is called as cardiac notch. This is the site where the heart is present. Will be present. Okay, so that's about the human structure of the human lung particularly. Now, okay, there's something more has to be discussed. Now when we see both the lobes, the human has got the right one. The right lung has got three lobes, that is superior lobes, middle lobes, and the inferior lobes. When we see the structure of the human lungs, the right one is the bigger one. Right lobe is the bigger one. Right lung is the bigger one, having three lobes, that is the superior lobe, and the middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. While the left lung has got only two lobes, that is the inferior lobe and the superior lobe. Okay, so now these lungs will be basically will be present in a thoracic cage. You can see over here, these lungs are present enclosed within the thoracic cage. Okay, so which are basically covering this thoracic cavity. We'll see this thoracic cage will be consisting of anterior surface of this lung is basically made up of neck and clavicle. You can see this is a clavicle bone and this is neck. So this is the anterior part of this thoracic cage. So the covering of the thoracic cavity makes the thoracic cage. All this thoracic cavity is covered by some specific type of muscles and tissues, okay, which will be making a thoracic cage. So the anterior surface is basically enclosed by this clavicle bone in the neck. The posterior surface, this is the posterior surface, is basically made up of diaphragm. Diaphragm is a membranous structure which will be also helping in the function of breathing. Okay, so we'll see that how it's happen, how it will take part in the breathing as well. Ventral surface, this is the this part towards the chest is basically the ventral surface, will be consisting the sternum and the ribs. This is the sternum, this flat bone present over here is the sternum, and this circular or semicircular rings are called as rib rings, okay, or we can say ribs. And the dorsal surface, at the back side we have got the vertebral column and the ribs, okay, that the back surface, at the back side we have got the vertebral column and the ribs, while the lateral surface, at both the lateral sides we have got the ribs. So this thoracic cavity is enclosed by a structure which is called as thoracic cage, and this thoracic cage is basically made up of different structures in different sides. That's the anterior, posterior, anterior neck and clavicle bone, posterior the diaphragm. The ventral side is basically having sternum and ribs. The dorsal side will be having the vertebral column, and the lateral will be having the ribs. Okay, these are the main structures of the thoracic cage. Okay, now let us see the alveoli. Let us see the alveoli, the structure of alveoli. Okay, now the alveoli is the structural and functional unit of the respiratory system. The alveoli is that particular part where the exchange of gases take place. Alveoli is that part of the lungs which is at which the exchange of gases will be taking place. Okay, so there are around 300 millions of alveoli present in the lungs. So around total of around 300 million of alveoli will be present in the lungs. Okay, which will be this wall of alveoli consists of two layers. This wall of alveoli will be consisting of two layers, that is the outer layer and the inner layer. The outer layer is basically made up of yellow fibrous connective tissue. The outer layer is made up of yellow fibrous connective tissue, and it will be the one which is associated with the network of the blood capillaries. It is the one which is associated with the network of lot of blood capillaries. It will be responsible for exchange of the blood, different substances to the blood. Okay, so it will be, outer layer is basically made up of yellow fibrous connective tissue, and it will be forming the network of blood capillaries. So here you can see the outer one is the outer layer of the alveoli. The inner layer is basically made up of simple squamous epithelium. The inner layer is basically made up of simple squamous epithelium, also called as pneumocytes 2. Okay, so and these are small size, responsible for gaseous exchange. We will be discussing the structure of alveoli again as well. These are the small size responsible for mainly the gaseous exchange, and there are two types. The small sized are responsible for gaseous exchange, while the larger sized epithelium cells are responsible for secreting the lecithin. And the lecithin is a surfactant molecule. It is a surfactant molecule which prevents the collapsing of the lungs or the alveoli. Okay, so the inner layer will be consisting two type of cells, that is the small sized cells and the large sized cells. The small sized cells are responsible for the gaseous exchange, while the larger sized cells are responsible for the secreting a lecithin. And this lecithin is a surfactant molecule which will prevent the collapsing of the alveolar sac, Okay, now this lecithin lining is mainly responsible for lowering the surface tension of alveoli. It will be responsible for lowering the surface tension of alveoli. It also speeds up the diffusion. Because of this lecithin. And the third one is kills the bacteria that may reach the lungs. There are a lot of bacteria which may get entered into the lungs after the different type of barriers as well also. Then this has to be killed, and this can be killed by the lecithin. Okay, so these are the main functions and the structure of the alveoli. So we have done the structure of the lungs and the alveoli. Now we have seen the lungs is covered by the thoracic cage. Okay, when at the posterior part, it is basically covered by the diaphragm. So let us see the diaphragm. So diaphragm is a dome-shaped septum. It's a dome-shaped septum which is only found in mammals. It's basically the muscular septum. It's basically a muscular septum which is found in only mammals. So note it down. So muscular diaphragm is basically mainly found in the mammals, exceptions crocodile. Even the crocodile will be having such type of system. So it's a dome-shaped septum which divides the body parts into two parts. So it's a septum, it's a part of membrane, it's a membrane of separation. It's a membrane which is separating the whole body into two parts. It's a membrane which separates the whole body into two parts, that is the upper thoracic cavity and lower abdominal cavity. It divides the whole body into two parts, that is the upper thoracic cavity and lower abdominal cavity. Okay, and it is through this it will be also containing, it will also consisting a hole through which the esophagus will be passing through, through which the different tubes will be passing through. Okay, so we'll see that. Now it is a dome shaped septum which divides the body into two parts, that is upper thoracic cavity and the lower abdominal cavity. Okay, so the part above this diaphragm is called as thoracic cavity, and the part which is below this diaphragm are called as abdominal cavity. Now in the center of diaphragm, a central tendon is present. This central tendon is pierced by three structures mainly. The central tendon, what is the central tendon? It's basically a piercing present in the center of the diaphragm. It's a piercing present in the center of diaphragm, through which three different parts are basically passing through. Through which three different structures are passing through. These structures are esophagus. It will be through this piercing. Esophagus will be passing. Aorta, which is responsible for the blood circulation, and the posterior vena cava. These are the main three structures which will be passing through this central tendon. And what is central tendon? It's a central tubular structure which is piercing this diaphragm. Okay, in diaphragm, radial muscles are present. In the diaphragm, we have got radial muscles which are present, which originate from the periphery and inserted in the center of diaphragm. So these muscles will be originating from the periphery of the diaphragm and are inserted in the center of the diaphragm. And by the contraction of these muscles, the diaphragm becomes flattened. So there will be, during contraction, this diaphragm, which is dome shaped, will get flattened. Okay, and during the relaxation, they will again get in the normal shape. And hence we can say these radial muscles will be helping in inspiration. You may note it down. These radial muscls will be helping in the inspiration. Okay, so we have seen the structure of lungs, we have seen the structure of alveoli, the thoracic cage and the diaphragm. Okay, now the another part is the intercostal muscles. Okay, now what are intercostal muscles? Let us see. So intercostal muscles are so we have seen that the lung is basically covered by the thoracic cage. This thoracic cage will be consisting of the ribs which are connected to the sternum and the vertebral column. Okay, now the space between two ribs, these two ribs, so these are two ribs and the space is there between these two ribs. This is the space present between these two ribs, is called as intercostal. What is it? It is called as intercostal space. Okay, so the space between two ribs is called as intercostal space, in which two types of muscles are present. So these are the intercostal space. Within this space, there are two types of muscles are present, that is the external muscle and the internal muscles. These are the two types of muscles are present, which are called as external and the internal muscles. So the first one is external intercostal muscles and the internal intercostal muscles. So the muscles which are present between two costal regions are called as intercostal muscles. Okay, this can be of two types: external intercostal muscles and the internal intercostal muscles. Okay, now the fibers of an external intercostal muscles originate from the posterior border of the dorsal. Okay, and the intercostal muscles fiber will be originating from the dorsal surface of the lower rib and inserted into ventral surface. Okay, so right now you have to understand the external intercostal muscles on causing contraction will respond for inspiration, that is for inhaling the gases, while the internal intercostal muscles, that is IACM, during contraction what will happen? The muscle ribs and sternum shift downward and inwards and responsible for the forceful expiration. So, and these both muscles, that is intercostal muscles, that is external and internal, are under the control of the cerebrum. Okay, so both muscles are under the control of the cerebrum. So the intercostal muscles are those muscles which are present in the space between two ribs. Okay, and this can be external intercostal muscles and the internal intercostal muscles. The external intercostal muscles on contraction causes the inspiration or the inhalation of the gases, while the internal intercostal muscles during contraction they will be shifting the ribs downwards, muscle ribs downwards, and sternum inwards, right? So this will be responsible for forceful expiration, and these both muscles are under the control of the cerebrum. So that was about the structure of the lungs particularly. Okay, now let us start the mechanism of respiration. So now we know that what is respiration. It's basically, we had seen three different parts of respiration. That is, the first part was the external respiration, then other one is the internal respiration, and third one was the cellular respiration. So first, when we say the external respiration, it involves the exchange of gases. The first is basically involving the exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the lungs. Okay, now this exchange of gases between atmosphere and the lungs, in the simple form, it is called as breathing. So what is breathing? Breathing is the exchange of the gases between the atmosphere and the lungs, between the atmosphere and the body particularly. And this breathing is basically involved in different organisms in different manner. Okay, so they will be having different surfaces for the breathing in different organisms, but in the case of human beings, the lungs are used as a organ of the breathing, as the organ of the gaseous exchange, and hence we will be discussing the mechanism of breathing in lungs. We will be discussing the mechanism of breathing in the lungs. Okay, now breathing is basically intake of the fresh air from environment and expulsion of the foul air from the lungs. Simple form, we can say it's a intake of the fresh air from environment and expulsion or removal out of the foul air from the lungs, and it is called as breathing. So mainly there are two types of breathing. Two types of, we can say, two steps of the breathing. Mainly there are two steps of the breathing, that is inspiration, or we can say inhalation. And the other is expiration, or we can say exhalation. Okay, so we will be seeing both the processes, inspiration or inhalation and the exhalation, step by step. How does it occur mechanically? So what we are going to see, mechanism of breathing. Okay, so now during inspiration, basically what happens. So inspiration is basically active process of around 2 seconds. So it will be taking off around 2 seconds, and here the fresh air is basically taken inside. So it is completed in around 2 seconds, and it's a very active process. It's an active process, means it will be requiring the energy. Now what will happen during the inhalation? These are the cells, these are the rib muscles, that is the intercostal muscles, okay, which are related to ribs and sternum. Okay, and this is the diaphragm. Okay, now what happens, the diaphragm is normally in the dome shaped. The diaphragm will be in dome shaped normally it will be dome shaped. Okay, but and this rib muscles are basically present in normal shape. Okay, now during this inspiration, two structures will be basically responsible for its inspiration, that is the contraction of radial muscles and the contraction of external intercostal muscles. Okay, so what happens, so when this breathing is taking place, what will happen, under the effect of cerebrum, this diaphragm, which was in dome shaped, will get flattened. So this diaphragm will get flattened. So when it gets flattened, so it will be increasing its volume. So this will get flattened, okay, so the total volume is basically increased over here. We can see when this diaphragm, when does it get flattened, under the effect of contraction of rib muscles. So first of all, what will happen, the rib muscles will get contracted, the radial muscles will get contracted. So inspiration will be occurring by mainly the contraction of two muscles. The inspiration will be occurring mainly by the contraction of the two muscles, that is the radial muscles of diaphragm and the external intercostal muscles, okay, of the ribs. So these are the two muscles which will get contracted. So first one, when the radial muscles get contracted, what will happen, the diaphragm, which is basically dome in structure, will get flattened. Because diaphragm, which is when the radial muscles of the diaphragm gets contracted, this diaphragm will get flattened due to contraction. Okay, and when the contraction of this intercostal muscles occur, what will happen, this movement, this sternum and the ribs will move outwards, it will get raised. Okay, so due to this, what will happen, when the diaphragm moves downward and gets flattened, while the rib muscles get outward and upward, okay, what will happen, the inner volume increases, the volume of the thorax cavity. This is called thoracic cavity, or we can say lung cavity. So volume of this cavity increases, Now when this volume increases, what will happen, the pressure decreases. When the volume increases, what will happen, the pressure within this cavity decreases. The pressure within this cavity decreases compared to the external environment. So what will happen when the radial muscles of diaphragm get contracted? This will get flattened. This dome shaped radial muscle will get flattened, and the rib muscles will get outward or upward, due to which the volume within this cavity will increase. And due to increasing this volume, what will happen? The pressure within this cavity will decrease. The pressure inside the cavity and outside the body is different. Outside the body the pressure is basically high, and inside the body the pressure is low. So the movement will occur from outside to inside. So we can say the movement of air will occur from outside to inside due to the from high pressure low pressure, and this movement from outside to inside the body is called as inspiration. Okay, so what is it? Again, let us see. So it's a type of active process mainly consisting of 2 seconds, which involves the contraction of two inspiratory muscles, which are these muscles? Are the first is the radial muscles of the diaphragm, which gets contracted, then it gets flattened. These radial muscles get flattened when gets contracted, and due to which the volume of thoracic cavity will increase. At the same time, the external intercostal muscles will also get contracted, due to which the sternum, due to contraction of these muscles, the sternum comes outward and the ribs goes out upward, due to which again the volume of thoracic cavity will increase due to contraction of both these muscles. And due to this, the intrapulmonary pressure decreases. The volume increases and the intrapulmonary pressure decreases by around 1 to 3 mmHg, and hence the movement of the air will take place from high pressure to low pressure, that is from the external environment to the internal environment. Okay, so this is the mechanism of the breathing. Okay, next is the expiration. Now expiration is almost opposite of the inspiration. So now here what happens? In the case of expiration, again the two muscles are particularly there. It's a type of passive transport where it's not require a lot of efforts by the body. It does not require a lot of efforts by the body. Okay, so it is caused mainly due to relaxation in the respiratory muscles. As in the case of the inspiration, what happened? The contraction of the muscles led to the inspiration, while here it's the relaxation of these muscles will be responsible for the expiration. So this radial muscles, which was basically having a dome shaped diaphragm, gets again into normal shape. So this was the flattened, and further it was the flattened. This was flattened. Let us say this diaphragm was flattened, but due to the relaxation of the radial muscles, what happens? Due to relaxation of the radial muscles, what happened? This diaphragm got again its own shape, that is a dome shaped. Okay, and hence this volume again get decreased. At the same time, due to relaxation of these intercostal muscles, the relaxation of intercostal muscles will also occur. The relaxation of these intercostal muscles will be responsible for again downward movement of the sternum and the ribs, inward movement of the ribs. Okay, so downwards and the inward movement of the ribs and the sternum, due to which altogether what will happen? Due to the relaxation of this radial muscles of diaphragm and the downward movement of the sternum and ribs, what will happen? The thoracic cavity, the volume of this thoracic cavity will decrease. Or we can say the volume of the thoracic cavity or the pulmonary cavity will decrease, due to which the intrapulmonary pressure will increase. So the pressure within this cavity will increase, and hence the movement of air will be taking from high pressure to low pressure, that it will start moving from the pulmonary cavity to the outward environment. This will start moving from the pulmonary cavity to the outward environment, and hence this process is called as expiration. Or we can say exhalation. It's called as exhalation. Okay, so once again let us see. So during the expiration, what happens? It's a passive process which will be taking around 3 seconds. Okay, so here just opposite to the inspiration, here what will happen? The relaxation of the muscles will take place. So first of all, the relaxation of the radial muscle will occur. In such a way that the diaphragm becomes normally again dome shaped. So due to the relaxation of the radial muscles, what will happen? The diaphragm again becomes normal in shape that was in dome shape. Okay, now this will be responsible for the normal of the dome shape, normal shape of the diaphragm, which will be responsible for increasing the pressure inside the thoracic cavity, and decreasing its volume. Okay, Next, due to the relaxation of the external intercostal muscles, the ribs and sternum again gets normal position, that they move downward and inward, due to this what will happen, the volume of thoracic cavity will decrease, due to which the what will happen, the volume of thoracic cavity will decrease, and the intrapulmonary pressure, the pressure which is present in the intrapulmonary region, will increase by 1 to 3 mmHg. And under this condition what will happen, the pressure inside the lungs is higher compared to the outside. The pressure inside the lung is higher compared to the outside, and hence the air will start moving outside the body. The air, and hence due to this what will happen, the air will start moving outside the body. Okay, and such condition is called as expulsion of air. Such condition is called as expulsion of air. Okay, that was about the inspiration and the expiration. So this is how this inspiration and expiration will take place. Let us see again diaphragm functions in breathing. So here breathing is basically involving this lungs will be taking the gas inside. Why? Because this diaphragm will be getting stretched, and it will get flattened, due to which the sternum and rib will get outward, due to which the volume increases and the pressure decreases. The movement will be from outside to inside. And during exhalation, the just opposite to that will happen. Diaphragm will get normal in shape. It will occur diaphragm is normal in shape, and due to which the volume will be decreased inside the lungs, and the ribs and sternum will also get contracted, relaxed, due to which they will get inward and downward, due to which the pressure within this lungs will decrease, and hence it will move, the air will move from, the pressure in the lungs will increase, and hence the air will move from inside to lungs to outside. Okay, so this is about the inspiration and the expiration. This is about the inspiration and the expiration. Okay, so now let us see in the case of normal breathing. That is called as euponia. What is euponia? Euponia is basically the normal breathing. Okay, so normal breathing is euponia is called as abdominal breathing. The normal breathing, that is euponia, is called as abdominal breathing, which is under the control of the medulla. It's a part of the brain. Okay, it's a part of a hidden brain particularly. Now, under the normal breathing, that is euponia, it's basically abdominal breathing is also called as abdominal breathing, and which is under the control of the medulla. So under normal breathing, the role of diaphragm for this breathing will be 75%, and role of costal muscles, intercostal muscles is only about 25%. While during the forceful breathing is also called as thoracic breathing. Okay, and it is under the control of cerebrum, which is a part of the forebrain. Okay, so the forceful breathing is called as thoracic breathing. It's under the control of the cerebrum. Okay, and the normal breathing is called as euponia, is basically the abdominal breathing. A pregnant female usually breathes by thoracic breathing. A pregnant female will be normally basically take the breaths, will be breathing by the thoracic breathing. Forceful breathing will be there. In the case of thoracic breathing, the role of diaphragm will be around 25% only, while the role of intercostal muscles will be around 75%. But that's just opposite to that. Okay, that was about the types of breathing. Okay, now let us see the spirometry. What is spirometry? It's a pulmonary air volumes and capacity. So we will see different types of air volumes which are present inside the pulmonary region. The first one is the tidal volume. We have to understand these terms, we have to understand all these terms. Okay, this is a spirometry. We have to understand all these terms. Okay, so let us see tidal volume. What is tidal volume? Tidal volume is the total volume of air which is inspired or expired in normal breathing. It's the total amount of air which is inspired or expired in a normal breathing. It is around 500 ml. So here you can see this is the zero, or we can see this is normal, and this is the tidal volume. This is the tidal volume, that is 500. This small wave is called as tidal volume. So it's a difference between 2500 to the 3000. So normal capacity is 2500 will be there, and the difference is basically 2500 to 3000. It means the 500 ml. Okay, so 500 ml of the volume is 500 ml is the volume of the tidal capacity. It's the volume of air. It's the volume of air which is inspired or expired in normal breathing. Okay, so that is the tidal volume. Okay, you have to keep it in mind. Next is inspiratory reserve volume. So it's a volume of air which is inspired forcefully beyond tidal volume, and it is around 3000 ml. It is around 3000 ml. So this is the upper region is basically inspiration, and this lower region is the expiration. So this when the forceful inspiration is taking place, so during the tidal volume, basically the volume would be 2000 ml. But when the forceful inspiration is taken place, so what will happen? It will be showing this curve, okay, and up to this. So we have seen up from 3000 ml to 6000 ml. It has reached from 3000 to 6000 ml. So this region from this 3000 to 6000 will be called as now inspiratory reserve volume. It is called as inspiratory reserve volume. And how is it caused? It is caused by forceful breathing. It is caused by forceful inspiration beyond tidal volume. Okay, that is the forceful inspiration beyond tidal volume. Similarly, there is also forceful expiration as well. That is called as expiratory reserve volume. So this is the volume of air which is expelled forcefully beyond the tidal volume. It is around 1100 volume. Okay, so here you can see this is the gas which can be expelled out forcefully. This is the amount of volume of the air which can be expelled out forcefully, and this is called as after the tidal volume. This is called as expiratory volume. It will be around 1100. Okay, so this is the expiratory reserve volume, which is basically the volume of air which is expired forcefully beyond tidal volume. Okay, it is around 1100 ml. Next is residual volume. Next one is the residual volume, or you can say RV. This is the volume of air which always remain in lungs after forceful expiration. Even after you will be expiring all your lung out, or all your air outside your lung, but still there will be some amount of volume of air which will be always present in your lungs. Okay, this is called as residual volume. So what is residual volume? It's the volume of air which always remain in lungs. After even the forceful expiration. It cannot be expired in any condition. It will be around 1200 ml. So this is the volume that volume, okay, which is called a residual volume. So this is the one. So you can see after the forceful expiration, the amount of volume which is expired will be to 1100, but still there is something is remaining in the lungs, that is the residual volume, which will not be able to expire out by any condition. And the total residual volume is basically around 1200 ml. It is around 1200 ml of volume. Okay, now functional residual volume is the ERV plus RV. What is the functional residual volume? Functional residual volume is the sum of this ERV plus RV, that will be around 1200 plus 1100. Okay, so it will be volume of air. What is the functional residual volume? It's the volume of air that will remain in the lungs after the normal expiration. Once the normal expiration is completed, the volume of air will be still present in the lungs, and this includes the ERV, that is expiratory reserve volume, and residual volume, the sum of both, that is 1100 plus 200 is equal to 2300 ml of total gas volume. Okay, so this is the functional residual volume, which consists of this RV, this is the RV, and this is the ERV. This both will be part of the functional residual volume. Okay, next is the vital capacity of lung. Okay, what is vital capacity of lung? It's a total sum of it's also called as vital capacity or total capacity of lung. It is a so it's the volume of air which expired forcefully after the forceful inspiration. So once the person has taken the air forcefully inside, and after inspiration again it will be expiring it forcefully, so it will be consisting the sum of mainly the IRV, that is inspiration residual volume, then ERV, that is the expiratory residual volume, and the TV, that is the tidal volume. So the vital capacity of lung will be including the sum of all these three, that is ERV and IRV and the TV, tidal volume, expiratory residual volume, and the inspiratory residual volume, which will be accounting to around 4600 ml. So here you can see the total vital capacity is the forceful inspiration, that is around this one 3000, forceful expiration, that is around 1100 ml, and the tidal volume, that is 500. So it will be accounting around 4600 ml. Okay, that is the vital capacity of the lungs. Next is the inspiratory capacity. Will be consisting of two two types of volume, that is IRV, that is inspiratory residual volume, and the tidal volume. So how we can say the inspiratory is the total volume of gas present in the IRV is basically the inspiratory volume. The inspiratory capacity will be consisting this inspiratory volume, total forceful inspiratory residual volume IRV, this is the part, and this tidal volume, and this together will be called as inspiratory capacity. That's the total capacity of an organism to inspire the gas, to inspire air. Okay, so it will be the sum of the IRV, inspiratory residual volume, plus tidal volume. Okay, and this is about the inspiratory capacity. Next is the functional residual capacity. Functional residual capacity is the volume of air that will remain in lungs after the normal expiration. So once the person is expiring normally, okay, then still there will be some amount of air will be remaining in the lungs, which will be functional. Okay, so this includes ERV and RV, that is expiratory residual volume and the residual volume. So it will include here this is the ERV, that is around 2000, and this RV, that is around 1200. Okay, so it will be including the air which will remain in the lungs even after normal expiration. So this is normal expiration. After normal expiration, it will be having this expiratory residual volume and this, what you can say, residual volume. So it will be the sum of IRV plus the, sorry, it's the sum of ERV plus RV. It's the sum of ERV plus RV, which will be coming around 2300 ml. And next is the total capacity of lungs. Total capacity of lungs is the volume of air which can be filled in lungs. It's the total volume of air which can be filled in lungs. Okay, so it's the vital capacity plus RV. So we have seen already the what is vital capacity. Vital capacity is basically the tidal volume, the IRV and ERV. This is a vital capacity. Along with that, the RV, which is residual volume, which is present in the lungs but non-functional, is also considered as a part of this. So this is the total capacity, or we can say total lung capacity, consisting of ERV, RV, TV, and okay, so we can say VC, that is vital capacity, and the RV also. That's the total lung capacity. In the case of our lungs, it will be coming around vital capacity plus RV, that is 4600 plus 200, that is around 5800 ml. So total capacity of lung will be 5800 ml. Okay, next is the dead space volume. What is dead space volume? Dead space volume is the air which is retained in respiratory tract from external nostrils to the terminal bronchial, or we can say to the bronchial tree. So it's dead space volume is the total amount of air. It's a total amount of air present or retained in the respiratory tract, which is retained in the respiratory tract, right from the external nostrils to the terminal bronchioles. To the terminal bronchioles, it is around 150 ml. It is not functional. It will not be used anywhere. Okay. Next is minute respiratory volume. A volume of air which is inspired or expired per minute. Minute respiratory volume is the volume of air which is inspired or expired per minute in normal breathing. That is called as minute respiratory volume. So it can be around, tidal volume is 150 and 500. So we know what is the tidal volume. It's a 500 ml. And in normal 1 minute, a person will be breathing for around 12 times. In normally 1 minute, the person will be breathing for around 12 times, and hence the total minute respiratory volume, that is MRV, will be around 6000 ml. So every minute will be respiring or will be exchanging of around 600 ml of total gases. Okay. Next is alveolar ventilation. So it's the volume of fresh air which take part in the gaseous exchange per minute. So that's the total amount of air which is taking part in the gaseous exchange, which will be around 350. So out of this 500, we know that the 350 will be the amount of gas which is actually taken. This is the total amount of fresh air, because the dead space is the one which is not used, that is 150 ml. So out of tidal volume, that is 500, the 150 will be of no use, so we will be considering only the 350 ml. So alveolar ventilation is the volume of fresh air which take part in gaseous exchange per minute. So it will be 350 into 12, that is 4200 ml of the total volume. Okay. And last one is expiratory capacity. Expiratory capacity is the total volume of air a person can expire after normal inspiration. A person has basically done a normal inspiration of having tidal volume 500 ml. After this particular point, the total volume of air a person can expire. A total volume of air a person can expire is called as expiration capacity, and this will be including the tidal volume and expiratory volume as well. Expiratory is a volume, that is the TV plus ERV. Okay, so that's about the different spirometry. So you can see Here you can see this is the Venn diagram showing the difference with different relation between them. There is a dead space which is of no use around 150 ml. RV, that is residual volume, which will be always present in the lungs, which is of no, which will not be utilized. Okay, that is around 100 and 1200 ml. Okay, then ERV, that is expiratory residual volume, which will be the forceful respiration, which will be the total volume of air which is expired forcefully after the normal expiration. So it is around 1100 ml. Okay, then the tidal volume is the normal exchange of gases which is taking place during the normal breathing, that is around 500 ml. And IRV is the total volume of air inspired forcefully after the normal breathing, after the tidal volume. So it's the total volume of air which is inspired after the normal breathing, or because after tidal volume it will be around 3000 ml. It will be around 3000 ml. Okay, so altogether is called as basically the total lung capacity, is called as total lung capacity. Okay, except this dead space. So altogether is called as total lung capacity. And inspiratory capacity we have seen, vital capacity we have seen. So these are different type of volumes present in a lungs. Okay, it's called as spirometry. So what we have done, we are done with the respiratory tract consisting the nasal passage, nasal cavity, and pharynx, larynx. Okay, the structure of larynx. And then we have seen the trachea, the types of bronchial tree, respiratory tree, tracheal structure, and then the lungs, the lung structure, lungs covering the lungs, what all the different things are covering the lungs, that is a thoracic cage, and lung structure is function. And we have seen the mechanism of breathing, how this mechanism will be occurring, that is inspiration and expiration, how this inspiration will take place, what all muscles will be involved and what all structures will be involved, expiration, during expiration what all muscles and structure will be involved. And lastly we have seen the spirometry, where we have seen the different conditions where the breathing will be calculated on the basis of the ml of gases which is basically inspired, etc. Okay, so that was all about the today's topic. The next lecture will start in next lecture. We will be starting the exchange of gases at the lungs and the blood. Okay, so that's all for the day. Thank you. Have a nice day.